Hey everyone! Before we get into today's guide, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you. We recently hit 500 subs, and now we've even broken through 1,000. That kind of support means the world, and it really motivates me to keep diving deeper into these guides, tests, and breakdowns for the Dragon Nest Classic community. So again, thank you. You guys are awesome. Today, we're talking about weapon suffixes. What stacks, what doesn't, what's recommended for your class, and most importantly, what you should actually be using in your build. Let's start with the most debated question. Do suffixes stack? Yes, they do. If you're using the same suffix on both your main and secondary weapons, the effects will stack. Big shout out to Nop from Discord. He contacted support and tested this himself. So we're building off of real data and in-game proof. The best suffix combinations to stack right now are 2 Intellect suffixes for elemental resist reduction and 2 Wind suffixes for crit resist reduction. And in this video, we'll be testing and proving all of this, so stick around. There are 3 key things to remember when stacking suffixes. 1. Both suffixes share the same cooldown. 2. They share the same duration. 3. Most importantly, the effects stack. Now visually, the debuff icon will still show the same value. For example, minus 12.05% with 1 Intellect suffix. And still the same number with 2. But don't be confused, the actual effect is stronger, even if the display doesn't reflect the change. So how do we prove it? The best way to test suffix stacking is through ice stacking. Why ice stacking? Because the Intellect suffix reduces elemental resist, and ice resist reduction directly affects how long freeze effects will last. That means we can actually measure the difference. Here's how we set up the test. We're comparing 1 Intellect suffix versus 2 Intellect suffixes. We're also using ice skills like Freezing Field and Frost Wind, which reduce ice resist by 30%. And we'll observe the freeze duration using Glacial Wave, Glacial Spike, and Blizzard Storm. Let's first prove that ice resist reduction affects ice stack duration. A regular Glacial Wave, with no debuff, lasts 5 seconds. Pay close attention to the debuff duration just below the golem's HP bar. Now, with Freezing Field, which reduces 30% ice resist. Glacial Wave now lasts 7 seconds. Frost Wind, which also reduces 30% ice resist, gives the same result, 7 seconds. So we've confirmed, more resist reduction equals longer freeze. Now let's start with the actual test. Let's test the difference between 1 Intellect suffix and 2 Intellect suffix. Using 1 Intellect suffix, Glacial Wave lasted 8 seconds. Then with 2 Intellect suffixes, it lasted 9 seconds. For Glacial Spike, 1 Intellect gave us 6 seconds. Two Intellect gave us 7 seconds. And for Blizzard Storm, 1 Intellect lasted 18 seconds. 2 Intellect gave us 19 seconds. So that proves it. Stacking 2 suffixes does increase the effect, even if the UI doesn't reflect the numbers. But here's the catch. Weaker suffixes can overwrite stronger ones. If you're running 2 Intellect or 2 Wind suffixes, and someone else in the party only has 1, their 1 suffix can overwrite your 2 suffix debuff and lower your party's overall damage. Let me show it in action. Special thanks to Diana, also known as Juho, for joining me in this test. I used 2 Intellect suffixes. She used 1 Intellect. And yes, her single suffix overwrote my double suffix, confirming this issue is real. So here's what I recommend. If you're only using a single Intellect or Wind suffix, it's better to switch to Magic or Destruction suffix. That way, you don't accidentally cancel out a teammate's double suffix setup. And now that we've confirmed suffix stacking and how single suffixes can accidentally override double setups, let's recap why you should care about stacking 2 Intellect or 2 Wind suffixes in the first place. Stacking 2 Intellect suffixes gives you enhanced elemental resistance reduction, and that applies to all elements: fire, ice, light, and dark. That means whether you or your teammates are using fireballs, frozen spikes, chain lightning, or gravity ball, your double Intellect setup helps everyone hit harder by lowering the target's resistance across the board. It's not just about ice stacking, although we proved that too. It's about unlocking maximum elemental damage potential for your entire team. As for wind, stacking 2 Wind suffixes gives you a stronger critical resistance debuff, which boosts everyone's crit damage against enemies with high crit resistance, like the Dragon Serpenta, especially classes that are already crit heavy like Acrobats and Bowmasters. This means higher damage crits, bigger burst windows, and faster boss clears, especially in coordinated parties running high crit builds. So, if you're playing with a team and you really want to bring value beyond just your own DPS, double Intellect and double Wind are 2 of the strongest support damage suffixes you can run right now. But remember, they only shine if they're not being overwritten. So make sure your team is synced up on suffixes and avoid mixing in single suffix builds that cancel out the full effect. All right, with that cleared up, let's move on to the second most asked question about suffixes. Can you convert your non-elemental damage into elemental damage? Yes, you do. It works once every 30 seconds and only has a 20% chance to trigger using an elemental suffix. So if you're playing a non-elemental class, like Swordmaster, Mercenary, Acrobat, or Bowmaster, you can deal fire, water, light, or dark damage using suffix procs. And right now, the most efficient route is going light damage, especially because you can take advantage of Priest and Paladin buffs. Because of those buffs, light becomes more powerful than destruction or magic suffixes in many party comps. You may have noticed some top players on the SDN Classic clear rankings using light suffix, and this is why. But, and this is important, it's not applicable to all classes. It is currently bugged for Bowmasters. The additional light damage doesn't apply to skills, except for right clicks. To show you what I mean, Diana tested this on her Bowmaster. She used Magic Arrow, triggered the light suffix, and got 6,464 light damage. Then she used it again and got the same result, even without the suffix proc. So that means the additional light damage wasn't actually applied to the skill. Sadly, it only works on right clicks. In her test, her normal right-click damage was 192, and the light damage was 320. Now here's something else. The light suffix bonus only applies to a single damage hit. So if you're using multi-hit skills, the suffix bonus is wasted on just one hit. That's why it's most effective to proc light suffix on single burst damage skills. Let me show you what I mean. On my Half Moon Slash, the light suffix bonus was around 10,000 extra damage. But on Moonlight Splitter, it was just 300. And on Crescent Cleave, it was 70. So you get much better value when light procs on burst skills. And with that said, the best class to use light suffix is Mercenary. They have lots of single-hit burst skills that can take full advantage of the proc. But it also works well for Swordmasters if you're timing your big skills with the proc window. Now that we've broken down how suffix stacking works, and when elemental conversions actually make sense, let's go through the recommended suffix setups for each class, both for your main and secondary weapons. These recommendations are based on current mechanics, damage types, party synergy, and how suffixes interact with your skill kit and team buffs. For Elemental Lords, go with Intellect on both weapons. This gives you the highest elemental resistance reduction for your party. For Force users, the best choice is Magic on main and Tent on secondary. This setup boosts your magic scaling, while also providing magic defense reduction for the whole team. You can also opt for double Intellect if you also want to contribute elemental resistance reduction for your party. Acrobats should use Wind on both weapons to maximize crit resist reduction, which scales extremely well with your naturally high crit rate and high agility stat conversion. Physical Bowmasters also benefit most from Wind on both, matching your crit-focused physical damage playstyle. Magic Bowmasters should go with Magic and Tent. Since the light suffix is currently bugged, it's not consistently applying bonus damage on your skills, so it's safer to stick with reliable scaling. Mercenaries can use Light on main and Iron Wall on secondary to take advantage of light buffs while gaining extra durability. But if you're not running with a light supporting team, or just want consistent damage, no matter who you party with, then Destruction and Iron Wall is a strong alternative. Physical Swordmasters follow a similar rule. Run Light and Iron Wall if your team is providing light buffs, or Destruction and Iron Wall if you want a more independent setup. For Magic Swordmasters, go Light on main and Tent on sub to maximize burst procs from light suffix. Alternatively, you can go Magic and Tent if you prefer smoother, scaling damage over time. Paladins should go Light and Tent if you're providing light synergy to the party. Or switch to Magic and Tent, depending on your personal build and team composition. And for Priests, the best setup is Magic and Tent. It stacks well with your magic-based skills and supports your natural scaling with self-buffs. These combinations are what I recommend if you're looking to balance damage output and debuff contribution. based on how your class plays in both solo and party content. And that wraps up our deep dive into weapon suffix mechanics, from stacking rules to elemental conversions and class-specific recommendations. If this guide helped clarify something you've always wondered about, or if it gave you that one missing edge for your build, consider subscribing. We recently hit 500 subscribers, and somehow, you guys pushed it past 1,000. I seriously can't thank you enough. This is just the beginning. We've got more in-depth breakdowns, advanced class guides, and even live testing videos coming, especially for Dragon Nest Classic. So if you're the type who wants to understand how things work, not just copy builds blindly, you are in the right place. Drop a like if you found this useful, share it with your guildmates, and leave a comment if there's a mechanic or class you want us to explore next. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.